My brother's identity theft ended our brotherhood and left me legally clear, but trapped in a daily struggle against lingering anxiety and our family's strained silence. It starts the same way every morning. Before coffee, before checking my work email, before even really letting the day in. I grab my phone, my thumb already moving to the little icon on my home screen. It's a credit monitoring app. The screen loads, the little circle spins, and then my score appears. Excellent. Unchanged. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. A tiny knot of tension in my gut loosens just for a little while. It's a ritual, a compulsion, a quiet daily battle against a ghost that's already been exorcised. I'm legally in the clear. I have the documents to prove it tucked away in a fireproof box. A letter from First National Trust Bank on thick official letterhead, stating in no uncertain terms that I, Maverick Watson, age 26, bears zero financial responsibility for the loan in question. It's been 2 months since that letter arrived, 2 months since the nightmare officially ended. But my body hasn't gotten the memo. My mind still races. Every time the mail carrier comes, my heart does a little stutter step. Junk mail bills, flyers, they all go into the shredder. The high-pitched whine of the machine is one of the most comforting sounds I know. It's the sound of threats being turned into meaningless confetti. The biggest threat, the source of all this anxiety, has a name: Wyatt. He's my brother, 29 years old, 3 years my senior, and for most of my life the person I looked up to more than anyone. Now he's a ghost too. We haven't spoken in 3 months. Not since the day I walked into a police station, my hands shaking, and filed a report against him for identity theft. That was the day our brotherhood ended. I didn't just file a report, I signed its death certificate. Our family, well, they're trying, but it's like trying to have a dinner party in a house where one of the walls has been blown out. Everyone is cold. Everyone is pretending the wind isn't howling through the gap, and everyone is terrified to look at the hole. Wyatt's name has become a 4-letter word. My mom will call and talk about the weather, her garden, a cousin's new baby. Anything and everything except the one thing we're both thinking about. She'll ask how I'm doing, and I'll say, "I'm fine, Mom." And she'll say, "Good, good," and we'll both pretend that's the end of it. The silence that follows is so loud it's deafening. It all started 6 months ago. Life was normal. I was working, saving up, planning for the future. Wyatt was always a bit of a dreamer. He had big ideas that never quite seemed to pan out, a charm that could get him into rooms he didn't belong in, and a consistent inability to manage his money. I loved him, but I knew who he was. I never lent him more than I was willing to lose. A 50 here, 100 there. That was the boundary. Or so I thought. The first sign that something was catastrophically wrong was a letter. It was from First National Trust Bank, and it had my name on it, but it was an account I didn't recognize. A delinquency notice. It said I was late on a payment for a $35,000 personal loan. My blood ran cold. I remember just staring at the number, $35,000. That's more money than I'd ever seen in one place. It was a down payment on a house. It was a new car. It was a life-altering amount of debt, and it had my name plastered all over it. I called the bank immediately, my voice trembling. I told the woman on the phone there had to be a mistake. I'd never taken out a loan for that amount. She was patient but firm. She read off the details. The loan was taken out 2 months prior. The primary borrower was Wyatt Watson, and the co-signer was Maverick Watson. That's when the floor fell out from under me. Co-signer. I'd never co-signed anything for Wyatt in my entire life. I would never do that. He'd asked me before, years ago, for a car loan, and I had politely but firmly refused. He knew my stance on it. I told the bank representative, "That's impossible. I never signed any paperwork." She calmly explained the process, that they would have my signature on file. And in that moment, I knew exactly what had happened. Wyatt had access to my life. We grew up together. He knew where my important documents were kept at our parents' house. My social security number, my date of birth, everything. He had seen my signature 1,000 times on birthday cards and shared documents. He hadn't tricked me. He hadn't convinced me to sign something under false pretenses. It was so much worse, so much more violating than that. He had taken a pen, and with his own hand he had forged my name. He had stolen my identity, my future, and used it to secure a $35,000 payday for himself. The betrayal was a physical thing. It felt like a punch to the gut that knocked all the air out of my lungs. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a desperate person making a bad choice. This was a calculated criminal act. He had to have planned it. He had to have gathered my information, practiced my signature, and then walked into a bank and lied over and over again, all while looking someone in the eye. And he did it to his own brother. The next month was a blur of panicked phone calls, paperwork, and sleepless nights. The first step was the hardest. A month after I got that first notice, I made my decision. I drove to the local police precinct. Sitting in that sterile, unwelcoming office, giving a statement to an officer who looked at me with a mixture of pity and professional detachment, it was the loneliest moment of my life. I was officially reporting my own brother for a felony. At the same time, I filed a formal fraud affidavit with the bank. I sent them samples of my real signature. I gave them the police report number. I put my entire life under their microscope and prayed they would see the truth. And they did. It took a month, but the letter I'd been waiting for finally arrived. Their internal investigation was complete. Their experts had analyzed the signature on the loan document and concluded it was without a doubt a forgery. I was officially, legally, and financially absolved. The $35,000 anchor that had been tied around my neck was cut loose. The relief was immense, but it was short-lived. Because as soon as the financial terror subsided, the family drama began. Some of my family members just don't get it. My aunts, my uncles, they hear that I filed a police report, and they look at me like I'm the one who committed a crime. I've heard the whispers. He's his brother, he should have just helped him. Family doesn't do that to family. Wyatt just made a mistake. He was in a tough spot. A mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store. A mistake is taking a wrong turn on the highway. Forging a legal document to steal $35,000 using your brother's good name and credit, that's not a mistake. That's a premeditated crime. It's a felony, a life-ruining, trust-shattering, soul-crushing act of betrayal. They don't understand that if I hadn't done exactly what I did, my life would be over before it really began. My credit would be destroyed for a decade. I'd never be able to get a mortgage, a car loan, maybe not even an apartment. That $35,000 would have been my burden to bear. They see it as me choosing a bank over my brother. But they're wrong. I was choosing myself. I was choosing my future over his crime. He put me in an impossible position. It was either his future or mine. And I refused to feel guilty for saving my own life. I check my credit score. I shred my mail, and I wait, because I know what the bank's letter really meant. When they cut my name off that loan, they didn't just erase the debt, they transferred it. The entire $35,000 weight plus interest and penalties now rests solely on the shoulders of the only person legally left on the paperwork, Wyatt. He defaulted on the loan months ago. The bank exonerated me 2 months ago, which means for the last 60 days, the bank's legal department has had only one target. I know something is coming for him. A lawsuit, a judgment, something. It's not a matter of if, but when. And every time the phone rings, I brace myself, wondering if this is the day the other shoe finally drops, and the quiet Cold War in my family finally explodes into a full-blown catastrophe. I won the legal battle, but I feel like I'm still waiting for the real war to begin. The 2 months after I got that letter from the bank were some of the strangest of my life. I was legally free, a survivor of a financial shipwreck, but I didn't feel like I had reached the shore. I felt like I was treading water in a dead calm, waiting for the hurricane I knew was just over the horizon. Every day was a masterclass in controlled anxiety. I lived in a state of high alert, a soldier in a trench during a ceasefire. I'd wake up and my first conscious thought wasn't about work or breakfast or the weather. It was, is today the day? The phone became a tiny rectangular instrument of torture. Every buzz, every ring sent a jolt of adrenaline through my system. I'd snatch it up, my heart hammering against my ribs, my thumb hovering over the answer button as I scanned the caller ID, a number I didn't recognize. My stomach would clench. A call from a family member, my breath would catch in my throat. Most of the time it was nothing. A spam call. My sister asking what I wanted for my birthday. A work email notification. And with each false alarm, the tension would recede, but it never fully went away. It just settled back into a low hum in the back of my mind, the background noise of my life. I became obsessive about routines, as if by controlling the small things I could somehow manage the massive, uncontrollable thing that was coming. I sorted my mail over this recycling bin, immediately shredding anything that looked even remotely like a financial statement addressed to Wyatt or worse to both of us. My credit score became my new favorite video game. I checked it daily, watching the number hold steady, a silent testament to the choice I had made. It was my shield, the one thing I had protected when everything else was falling apart. The silence from my brother Wyatt was absolute. After I filed the police report 3 months ago, he had vanished from my life. No calls, no texts, no angry voicemails. It was a silence so complete, so heavy, it was like a physical presence in the room. In a way, it was worse than if he had been screaming at me. The screaming would have been honest. The silence, it was the sound of a grudge hardening into something permanent. The rest of the family tried to pretend. They tried to build a fragile bridge over the canyon that had opened up between me and Wyatt. We'd have family dinners where his name was never spoken. We'd talk about sports, about work, about anything and everything, except the 29-year-old elephant that wasn't in the room. But the tension was suffocating. You could feel the unspoken words hanging in the air. You could see the careful, darting glances between my parents. You could sense the judgment from certain relatives who saw me not as a victim of a crime, but as the executioner of family loyalty. They thought I should have just quietly absorbed the $35,000 debt. They thought I should have set my own future on fire to keep Wyatt warm. They didn't understand that he had already doused me in gasoline and handed me the match. And then one Tuesday afternoon, the quiet ended. I was at my desk trying to focus on a spreadsheet when my phone buzzed. It was my aunt, my mom's sister. My stomach did its familiar flip. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me not to. This was it. I just knew. I took a deep breath, the kind you take before you dive into ice-cold water, and I answered. Hello. I was met with a sound that wasn't a word. It was a gasp, a sob, a frantic, high-pitched noise of pure distress. Maverick, oh Maverick. Aunt Carol, what's wrong? Are you okay? It's your mother, she choked out, her voice cracking. I'm at her house. You need to come over. It's Wyatt. Something's happened. My blood ran cold. For one wild, irrational second, my mind went to the darkest possible place. An accident. Something terrible. But then her next words snapped everything into sharp, ugly focus. The bank, Maverick. The bank, they're suing him. We got a call. Some lawyer. They're taking him to court. How could you let this happen? The words hit me like a physical blow. Not Wyatt is in trouble. Not the consequences have arrived. But how could you let this happen, as if I was the one who forged the signature, as if I was the one who defaulted on the payments, as if I held the strings of the entire legal system in my hands and had decided out of pure spite to pull them. I don't remember the drive to my parents' house. I'm sure I stopped at red lights and used my turn signal, but my mind was a million miles away. I was numb. The waiting was over. The hurricane had made landfall, and the first casualty was any lingering hope that my family would ever truly understand. I walked into a scene of quiet chaos. My aunt was pacing in the living room, wringing her hands. My mom was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall, her face pale and tear-streaked. My dad was standing by the window, his back to the room, his shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen before. My mom looked up as I came in, and her eyes were filled with a confusing storm of emotions. There was fear, there was sadness, and there was a deep, cutting accusation. They're ruining him, she whispered. It was barely audible. They're going to ruin his life. I stood there in the doorway, feeling like a stranger in my own family home. I was 26 years old, but in that moment, I felt like a child being blamed for breaking a priceless vase. Mom, I said, my voice steady, betraying the tremor I felt inside. What exactly happened? What did the lawyer say? My dad finally turned around. He looked tired. He looked a decade older than he had that morning. First National Trust Bank has filed a civil suit against Wyatt for the full amount of the loan. $35,000, I said. It wasn't a question. Plus interest, late fees, and their legal costs, he confirmed, his voice heavy with defeat. It's a mountain of debt, Mav. There's no way he can pay it. My aunt stopped her pacing and rounded on me. This is because of you. You're the one who filed that police report. You're the one who sicked the dogs on him. He's your brother. You should have protected him. And there it was. The bomb I knew was waiting to detonate. The core belief of half my family laid bare in a moment of crisis, that my duty as a brother was to allow myself to be a human shield for Wyatt's crimes, that my future was a disposable resource meant to be spent cleaning up his messes. I looked from my aunt's furious face to my mother's heartbroken one, and a profound sense of loneliness washed over me. I had been the victim of a felony. My identity had been stolen. My financial future had been held hostage. And yet in this room I was being cast as the villain, because I had refused to go down with the ship. I took a slow breath, trying to anchor myself. I didn't sick any dogs on him, I said, keeping my voice as level as I could. Wyatt took out a loan for $35,000. Wyatt forged my name to do it. Wyatt defaulted on the payments. The bank wants its money back. This is a simple, straightforward consequence of his actions. This has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you, my aunt shot back. If you hadn't run to the police, we could have handled this as a family. We could have figured something out. Figured what out, I asked, and for the first time my voice rose. Figured out how I was going to spend the next 10 years of my life paying off a debt for a loan I never signed for. Figured out how to explain to a mortgage lender that the massive default on my credit report was just a family matter. What was the plan? Aunt Carol, was I supposed to declare bankruptcy at 26? Was I supposed to just accept that my life was over because my brother decided to use my future as his personal ATM? The room fell silent. The truth of my words was too stark, too ugly to be easily dismissed. My mom finally spoke, her voice thick with tears. But a lawsuit, Maverick? It's so public. Our name, everyone will know. And that's what it really came down to. The shame, the embarrassment, the shattering of the perfect family image they had so carefully maintained. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the fact that the dirty laundry was no longer just in the house. It was being filed with the county clerk. It was becoming a public record, a permanent stain. I realized then that the lawsuit wasn't just against Wyatt. In their eyes, it was an indictment of the whole family. And they needed a scapegoat. They needed someone to blame for dragging this ugliness into the light. Wyatt had committed the crime, but I had committed the unforgivable sin of naming it, of refusing to participate in the silence. The phone on the end table rang shrill and demanding in the quiet room. We all stared at it like it was a venomous snake. My dad walked over and looked at the screen. He sighed a deep rattling sound. "It's him," he said, looking at me. "It's Wyatt." He held the phone out to me. The screen was lit up with my brother's name, a name I hadn't seen on my phone in 3 months, a name that now felt like a synonym for betrayal. "He wants to talk to you," my dad said. My mom looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Please, Maverick, just talk to him. Maybe you can fix this." Fix this. The words echoed in my head. They still didn't get it. I wasn't a player in this game anymore. I was a spectator. I had been formally excused from the field 2 months ago by a legally binding letter from the bank's fraud department. There was nothing for me to fix. I had already fixed my part of the problem. But I knew, looking at their faces, that this was a test. This was the moment I had to choose once and for all which side I was on, theirs or the truth. I looked at the phone still ringing in my father's hand. I knew what that call would be. It wouldn't be an apology. It wouldn't be an admission of guilt. It would be a torrent of blame, of accusation, of gaslighting. It would be Wyatt, the architect of his own destruction, trying to convince me and everyone else that I was the one holding the sledgehammer. The war wasn't just beginning. They were demanding I choose my enemy, and they were making it very clear who they thought it should be. I took a deep breath, and my heart pounding a heavy, painful rhythm against my ribs. I looked at the phone in my dad's hand, then at my mom's tear-streaked face. "Fix this," she had said, as if I could unforge a signature, as if I could unfile a police report, as if I could unbreak the law that my own brother had shattered. I shook my head slowly. "I'm not talking to him," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "There's nothing to say." "Maverick, don't be like this," my dad pleaded, stepping closer. "He's your brother." And what was I to him? I shot back the question, hanging in the air, sharp and ugly. Was I his brother when he was practicing my signature? Was I his brother when he was filling out that loan application with my social security number? Was I his brother when he let the default notices pile up, knowing they were coming to my mailbox too? I walked over and took the phone from my dad's hand. The ringing stopped. I looked at Wyatt's name on the screen, and with a final, decisive swipe of my thumb, I blocked his number. Then I blocked him on every social media app I had. It was a digital amputation, quick, clean, and brutal. I handed the phone back to my father. "It's done," I said. "He can't contact me anymore." The reaction was immediate. It was like I had thrown a grenade into the living room. My aunt stood up, her face a mask of disbelief and fury. How could you, after everything, how could you just cut him off? He's reaching out. He's trying to fix this. He's not trying to fix it. I almost shouted, my composure finally cracking. He's trying to find a way out. He's calling me because the bank's lawyers are calling him. He doesn't want forgiveness. He wants a co-conspirator. He wants me to call the bank and lie. To say it was all a big misunderstanding, to get back on the hook for that $35,000 so he doesn't have to face this alone. For the next hour, it was a siege. They came at me from all sides. They begged, they reasoned, they accused. They told me I was cold, that I was tearing the family apart, that I was being selfish. Every word was a blow designed to wear me down, to make me doubt my own reality. They insisted I had some power, some magic words I could say to the bank to make it all go away. I tried to explain over and over that my part in this was legally over. The bank investigated, I said, for what felt like the 100th time. They have a fraud department. They confirmed the signature was a forgery 2 months ago. They sent me a letter legally absolving me of the debt. As far as First National Trust Bank is concerned, I have nothing to do with this loan anymore. I am a victim of a crime, not a party to a debt. I can't call them. I have no standing. But they wouldn't hear it. The facts didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was protecting Wyatt from the consequences of his own actions. And I was the key. I was the one who had refused to play along, and for that, I was the villain. Wyatt's crime was a mistake, an error in judgment. My decision to protect myself was a deliberate, malicious act of betrayal. The argument reached a fever pitch, their voices blending into a chorus of condemnation. I felt small, cornered. I was 26 years old, and I felt like a child being scolded for a crime I didn't commit. Finally, something inside me snapped. I had had enough. Stop, I said. My voice was low, but it cut through the noise. Everyone fell silent. Just stop talking for a minute. I turned and walked out of the living room, down the hall to my old bedroom. I could feel their eyes on my back. I went to the closet, reached up to the top shelf, and pulled down a simple manila folder. It was thin, holding only a few sheets of paper, but it felt as heavy as a brick. I walked back into the living room, my heart a cold, hard knot in my chest. I stood in the center of the room, the folder in my hands. You want to know why I can't fix this? I asked the silent room. You want to see why this is out of my hands? You think this is a family squabble, a misunderstanding. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. I laid it on the coffee table for them all to see. This, I said, tapping the paper, is a copy of the police report I filed 3 months ago. Official report number, officer's name, everything. See this section here? It lists the crime. Identity theft. A felony. This isn't about a family loan. This is a formal criminal complaint. My aunt stared at the paper, her lips pressed into a thin line. My mom let out a soft sob. I pulled out the second sheet. This is the fraud affidavit I submitted to First National Trust Bank. It's a sworn legal document. My signature is at the bottom, notarized. In it, I state under penalty of perjury that I did not sign nor authorize anyone to sign on my behalf the co-signer agreement for loan number 74 Bravo. I placed it next to the police report. The evidence was building a cold, factual monument to my brother's crime. Then I pulled out the final piece of paper, the one that had given me back my life. And this, I said, my voice shaking just slightly, is the most important piece of paper in my entire life. It's a letter from the bank's head of fraud investigation. It's dated 2 months ago. I smoothed it out on the table. I'm going to read you the most important sentence. I cleared my throat and read the words that were burned into my memory. Following a thorough internal review, which included a forensic analysis of the signature provided on the co-signer agreement, our department has concluded that the signature is not authentic. Therefore, Maverick Watson is hereby released from any and all financial and legal obligations related to this account, effective immediately. I looked up at them, my eyes scanning their shocked faces. Forensic analysis, I repeated. That's a polite way of saying they hired a handwriting expert. They know. They have legal, verifiable proof that Wyatt committed forgery. A federal offense, since it was used to defraud a bank. This isn't me being mean. This isn't me holding a grudge. This is the consequence. This is the real world. This is what happens when you commit a felony. The room was utterly still. The 3 pieces of paper on the coffee table told the whole story. The crime, the denial, the verdict. There was no more room for interpretation, no more talk of mistakes or family matters. It was all there in black and white. The family didn't just crack that day. It shattered. My aunt got up without a word and walked out, grabbing her purse on the way. She couldn't look at me. To her, the truth was uglier than the lie. Some of my other relatives just sat there, stunned into silence, finally understanding the gravity of what Wyatt had done. My dad sank into his chair, put his head in his hands, and just wept. My mom was the one who surprised me. She walked over, her face pale, and picked up the bank's letter. She read it, then read it again. Her hands were trembling. She looked at me, and for the first time I saw not just a mother worried about her son, but a woman seeing the full scope of the betrayal. She saw the victim standing in front of her. "He could have ruined you," she whispered, the words barely audible. "He tried," I said softly. "He almost did." In the weeks that followed, the new lines were drawn. Some family members stopped speaking to me entirely. I was the pariah who had chosen the law over blood. But others, like my dad, called me. He apologized. He told me he was so caught up in the shame and the fear of the scandal that he couldn't see I was the one who had been truly wronged. He said he was proud of me for standing up for myself. It didn't fix everything, but it was a start. I accepted that my relationship with Wyatt was gone forever. I grieved for the brother I thought I had, the one I'd grown up with, not the stranger who would sacrifice my entire future for $35,000. I grieved for the family we used to be before it was broken by ink and lies. About a month later, my dad called again. The court had issued a summary judgment against Wyatt. The bank had won easily. They were garnishing his wages. A significant percentage of every paycheck he earned would go directly to the bank until the loan, the interest, and all the legal fees were paid off. It would take him years, a decade, maybe more. The consequences I had warned them about were no longer a threat. They were his new reality. It's been a while since that day. I moved into my own place. It's quiet, peaceful. The constant low-level anxiety that used to hum under my skin is finally gone. I don't jump when the mail arrives. I don't feel a jolt of panic when my phone rings with an unknown number. I am free. Last week, my dad came over to help me hang some pictures. We didn't talk about Wyatt. We just talked about work, about sports, about the future. It was normal, and it felt better than I could have imagined. Before he left, he put a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing, son," he said. "Don't ever doubt that." And I don't. Sometimes when I'm paying bills or checking my accounts, I log into my credit monitoring service. I look at the screen. I see my name, Maverick Watson. I see my credit score healthy and strong. I see a list of my accounts, a modest car loan, a single credit card, all in good standing. There is no trace of First National Trust Bank, no mention of a defaulted personal loan, no shadow of that $35,000 lie. It's just clean, secure, mine. I didn't get revenge. I didn't win a war. I simply defended my own life. It cost me a brother. It broke my family. But as I look at that clean report, a simple number on a screen, I know it was a victory. It was a quiet, lonely, and hard-won victory for my future. And it was worth it.